Every year, except maybe this year, Apple fans rejoice at the release of new grown-up toys and features that Android may have had for years.
Apple fans are excited to get their hands on the new iPhone.
If you take a look here, the people that have this, and the woman was able to buy her phone virtually.
Things in LA even turning violent.
But with every release, there is a founder on the other side of the world whose dreams hit a wall. Real startups, clever ideas, and integrations for Apple products that thousands of people may be using, that may be paying for, and then Apple just kills it with a swipe of inspiration from their own dev community. At some point, iOS had at least 50 flashlight apps for iPhone, which iOS 7 just killed in an instant. But let's be real, there was no real innovation there, and charging $5.99 for this was crazy. But a real innovation that Apple copied was Flux. In 2007, a team of Harvard researchers, including Dr. Charles Czeisler, published this paper that, among other things, concluded that blue light suppresses melatonin production, and this disrupts sleep quality and timing. So a couple of years later, Michael Herf, who was the CTO at Picasa, remember Picasa? It was like this Google Photos grandparent? Anyway, Michael and his wife, Lorna, left their jobs at Google and wrote a script that would lower the amount of blue light on your computer screen, making it predominantly yellowish. So they made a simple app that would sync with your time zone, so it automatically got your computer into this night mode that would help you sleep better. Flux became really popular, especially as research around blue light exposure grew, even potentially linking it to cancer. Now, because of Apple's restricted ecosystem, you couldn't do this on iPhones, but their Mac app was sweet and slick, and I used it for years. Some copycats emerged around this time. You had Redshift for Linux, Twilight for Android phones, and Blue Shade for Fire tablets. But then, in 2016, Apple's iOS 9.3 and macOS Sierra 10.12 launched a new feature called Night Shift. Michael and Lorna actually sent an open letter to Apple requesting them to allow them to launch a Flux iOS app, which again would have been impossible since apps don't have permission to control the screen color grading, and there's no record of Apple ever replying back, and you can see the downfall of Flux's awareness on their Google Trends data. I sent Michael an email as I was researching this video, but I didn't hear back. I hear that Flux is still around, like their Linux versions and their Windows version apparently still have some traction, but they've lost a lot of ground after Apple implemented this. Also, his LinkedIn bio still says founder, CEO at Flux, so maybe that's still his gig. Next on the list is Knock, a sweet little clever app that let you unlock your Mac by just knocking on your phone. This was a $3.99 app released in 2013, and it took advantage of Bluetooth LE to unlock the devices. Now, according to the coverage they got on The Verge at the time, if you quit the iPhone app, you would then have to reset the pairing, which could get a little messy. There were also some security risks since the app didn't require you to unlock your iPhone in order to do the tap thingy, so you could potentially unlock the computer if you managed to steal both devices. Now, you could argue that this inspired Apple's own Unlock with Apple Watch integration, which does work like a charm and has the security component of the Apple Watch pin. Another app from 2014 called FingerKey also tried to address this by letting you use your iPhone 5S fingerprint scanner to unlock your Mac, but any use of this disappeared as Apple started putting their own fingerprint readers on laptops just a couple years later. Now, speaking of the Apple Watch though, Pebble is next on the list. And this is no small single dev pet project. This was a real hugely funded company. They did Y Combinator in 2011, they launched a Kickstarter campaign in 2012 and raised over $10 million, which was the most funded Kickstarter campaign at the time.
You can feel incoming calls when your hands are full, or glance down at text messages when your phone is away. Pebble lets you control the music on your smartphone. You can use Pebble to monitor your performance.
The founder, Eric Mijikovsky, had toyed with the idea since, and the device they launched was quite revolutionary at the time. It was a 32mm, 144 by 168 pixel screen manufactured by Sharp, and it had a vibrating motor, ambient light sensors, and an accelerometer. And after feedback from Kickstarter backers, they managed to make it water resistant too. And its battery lasted for up to 7 days, and it was $150.
I think it's a little bit expensive at $150, but if you're in the market for a smartwatch, it's much more worth it than any of the other competitors that I've seen.
Pebble was a real hit at the time. By 2015, it had sold over 1 million watches. They had raised the Series A, but they didn't need that much money because they just knew how to navigate this Kickstarter pre-ordering game. Now, when did Apple start working on the Apple Watch? According to Wired, which quoted Sir Johnny Ive, October 2011. Now, Pebble was part of the Y Combinator Winter 2011 batch, so maybe, just maybe, it's a coincidence that the idea came to Johnny just around the same time. By the way, we recently launched a newsletter that keeps you up to date on all the Accelerator deadlines from around the world. Link below if you want to subscribe. Anyway, of course, Apple announced the Apple Watch in 2014, and Pebble tried to fight this battle. They announced the Pebble Time.
This
is Pebble time.
2 months before the Apple Watch went on sale, and they did raise another record Kickstarter campaign, $20 million. And the Pebble time was stainless steel, it had a 10-day battery life, and it was just $199. They even did a Pebble 2 1 year later, but despite their efforts, their days were numbered. The watch was crushing it, and Pebble just didn't have Apple's practically unlimited resources at their disposal or their massive developer community. Their Kickstarter page is still around, and it used to redirect to Fitbit, who bought some of the scraps after Pebble filed for bankruptcy in 2016. But Fitbit also died, so your click on that page takes you to this sad Google support page, which aside from the YouTube videos that I showed you, is all that's left of Pebble. That's 2 watches with 1 stone for Apple, I suppose. Actually, there's a small community of Pebble, ex-Pebble owners, users that have gotten together for repairs and kind of like firmware updates. So I guess there's something left of Pebble still. The next story on the list is a founder that has had not only 1, but 2 companies killed by Apple. This dude. Bill Nguyen, a self-proclaimed Apple fan because of how the Apple II changed his life, started his company called Lala in 2006, along with some friends. Lala was a pretty solid online streaming platform. Remember, this is the late 2000s, so music online was this delicate matter thanks to the Napsters and the mega uploads of the world. Go watch our video about them. Lala started as a CD trading platform, so you could trade physical CDs with other people, but soon moved into online streaming. The deal with Lala was that you could listen to any of the albums on their websites once, totally free, but just once. Then you could buy any MP3 download for 89 cents or unlimited streams for just 10 cents. And you could also upload your MP3 library to stream it from their website. And this company started around the same time as Spotify, but never really took off. iTunes was, of course, the leader at the time in online music buying, but not in streaming. Officially, Lala was acquired by Apple, but all signs point that this was an acqui-hire, mostly because the company was struggling and because they shut down the service just a year later. By the way, if you want to know more about the difference between an acquisition and an acqui-hire, we made a whole video about that. Some of Lala's features did make it to iTunes, like their iTunes Match, long before Apple went into Apple Music. But Bill quietly left Apple and went on to start Colored Labs in 2011.
It's called Color, and it's the newest social app for your smartphone.
Now, Colored Labs was the simple geolocation photo sharing app, so you could activate it and automatically share photos with people around you for events and parties and stuff like that.
It's a new way of doing social networking, and it's about where you actually are, not about being on virtual reality in the web.
1 million downloads at launch, 100,000 active users, but it just failed to live up to its expectations. And after a lot of turmoil, Apple decided to acqui-hire it again. Not a lot of value in the IP, but some $7 million in value in their team. Far short of the $41 million that they had raised from top Silicon Valley investors. But a remnant of Colored Lab still exists today. Bill said the logo was inspired by Apple's OG rainbow logo, but funny enough, you could also say their logo inspired something else. The same year as the acquisition, Apple replaced their photos sunflower with this. Now, other than their logo, another remarkable aspect of Color Labs' brand was their domain. It was actually color.com. I can't imagine how much they must have paid for that thing, because single domain is nothing but a pipe dream these days, right? Well, no, wrong, because if you're a tech startup, getting a single word domain is as easy as pie, thanks to our sponsor for today's video, .tech domains. In this day and age, it's almost like you have no choice but to add a hyphen or an extra letter, random words like hub or HQ to your company name in order to snatch a memorable domain. But with .tech, you can find some incredible, clean domain name options. Over 500,000 tech startups worldwide that have raised over $5 billion in funding also use .tech domains. Companies like 1x.tech, who are backed by OpenAI and are developing humanoid robots for homes, which is, pretty cool. They opted for a slick and memorable domain name to help them stand out from the competitive tech landscape. And why not? A .tech domain is the most relevant and obvious choice for a tech startup. You can go to your favorite domain registrar, or you can use the code Slidebean2024 for an exclusive 50% discount on your first year if you buy it at go.tech/Slidebean. We also partnered with them this year to pick one startup that's using a .tech domain every month for free office hours with my team and I. You can also sign up for those office hours with the link in the description. Thanks .tech for sponsoring today's video. At the very least though, Lala was an acquisition, so while Apple killed their independent services, the founders got something out of it. Similar case for Shazam, Embark, which is a grandparent to Apple Maps, and Wi-Fi Slam, which you have to thank for your indoor GPS. Now, before I tell you the last company, let me give you some honorable mentions of companies that have managed to survive despite Apple trying their best to inspire solutions from their products. There's Camera Plus and all the other pro camera apps. You have Focus, which came up with this concept of taking a photo now and being able to change the focus point later, which is now of course a native feature. And not only surviving, but seemingly thriving is Tile, who I would have bet $1 would not be around after AirTags came out. But today's video unquestionable winner is Beeper Mini, an app that Apple has made every deliberate effort to kill. Beeper is the brainchild of James Gill. When he was 16, in high school, he reverse engineered Apple's instant messaging protocol, and he built a rough prototype on Python, published it on GitHub, and it caught the attention of someone who was maybe a little salty against Apple for killing his other company.
Hi, my name is Eric, and this is my Pebble.
So Eric hired Jill, built a new team, and launched Beeper in December 2023. And the premise was a way to send iMessages from your Android devices, which is a punch right in the gut of Apple's monopoly on those blue text bubbles.
What we're trying to do is give people the freedom of choice.
By the way, if you're outside the US, you're probably hooked on WhatsApp, but in the US, most people use SMS or iMessage, and people with green bubbles are so out.
It's awful. It's the worst.
This very much caught Apple by surprise. For almost a decade, Apple has leveraged on those blue bubbles to keep people inside their ecosystem. The problem here is that Beeper opened a can of worms for Apple. This is a leaked email from 2013 between Eddie Q, remember him? And Craig Federighi.
We really need to bring iMessage to Android.
I am concerned that iMessage on Android would simply serve to remove an obstacle to iPhone families giving their kids Android phones.
This email was leaked by Epic, aka Fortnite, during their lawsuit against Apple for monopolistic practices. And that is exactly what this looks like. Beeper gets extra credit today for literally prompting an investigation by the Department of Justice into whether Apple is being monopolistic about this or not. In the weeks following Beeper's release, they played this cat and mouse game of updates and patches until Beeper finally concluded that this was gonna be a lost battle. On their last update about this, they released one last batch of workarounds, which is far from ideal. You'd need to use an old iPhone, rent one from them, or use a friend's device to confirm the registration data. This has, of course, security concerns, and most importantly, it's just really annoying. Beeper is not dead as a company, mind you, but they did give up on Beeper Mini, and they no longer advertise iMessage as a feature of their all-in-one messaging platform. By the way, also an honorable mention goes to Mr. Galyukov, the founder of Sunbird, who is also fighting this fight. Now, if you want to learn more about this messaging app ordeal, you should check our video on how WhatsApp actually makes money. We'll catch you next week.